I want to begin tonight by telling you about the day a man shut a door in my face. It was December in New York, and I was broke. I had been a dancer, and the work had dried up, and all I wanted in the world was to spend Christmas with my family in Barbados, in the little island house where I was born. But I had no money for the passage, not a dollar toward it. So I went to my teacher, an old black man named Abdullah, who knew this law better than anyone I've ever met. And I said to him, "Ab, I want to go to Barbados for Christmas." And he did not comfort me. He did not ask how much a ticket cost, or whether I had savings, or what my plan was. He looked at me and he said very quietly, "Neville, you are in Barbados." I said, "But Ab, I'm not. I'm standing here in New York with empty pockets." And his face hardened, and he turned and he closed the door. He left me standing on the step, because I had come to tell him what I wanted, and he would not hear it. He would only accept that I already had it. I tell you that story because it is the whole secret, and by the time we're through tonight, I want that door to close on your begging too, so that the only door left open is the one you walk through to receive. Let me say plainly what almost no one will tell you. The reason it hasn't come to you is not that you haven't wanted it enough. It's that you have wanted it too loudly and believed it too little. All that repeating, all that checking a dozen times a day to see if it's arrived, all that lying awake straining to feel something you are secretly certain isn't true. I know that state. I lived in it on Abdullah's step. And I'm telling you, the forcing itself is the confession. You only chase what you're convinced is missing. You only strain for what you believe you do not have. And every time you push underneath the words, you are announcing to your own consciousness, "It is not here, it is not mine, it has not happened." And your consciousness, which is the only reality and which never argues, simply answers, "So be it." I did not learn this gently. Abdullah made me suffer for it. Night after night, I went home and lay down and tried to sleep as though I were not on Gay Street in Manhattan, but in my father's house in Barbados. I heard the island in my mind. I felt the warm air that does not exist in a New York December. And every time the doubt came, "How, Neville, how? You have no money?" I remembered his hard face and his closed door, and I refused. I refused to feel the lack. I assumed I was already home. And I want you to notice what I did not do. I did not figure out the how. I never once solved the money. I simply slept in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and I let the how alone. Now, where did Abdullah get this? Where did I? Not from ourselves. We read it. I have said it 1,000 times, and I will say it again. The Bible is not the history of the Jews or of anyone else. It is the story of your own imagination, and every figure in it is a state of your own consciousness. And on this one matter, how to receive without forcing, the book will not stop speaking. Turn to Mark, the 11th chapter, the 24th verse, and notice the strangeness of it. It does not say, "Work for the things you desire, and one day you shall have them." It says, "Whatsoever things ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." Believe that ye receive them, present now. Not that you will, someday, if you're good enough. That you have. He is telling you to accept the having before there is a single shred of evidence for it. To feel it finished, while the whole outer world still swears it's undone. That is the entire art, hidden in one sentence, and men have read past it for 2,000 years because it is too simple to flatter them. The desire is the seed, but believing you already possess it, that is the receiving. And in the hour you truly receive it within, the forcing on the outside simply stops. It falls off you, because who strains to get what he already holds in his hand? Here is what Abdullah understood that took me longer. The scripture even gives this rest a name. It calls it the Sabbath, and I beg you, forget what they told you in church about a day of the week. The Sabbath is not a day, it is a state. It is the state you step into the moment you cease laboring for your desire and accept that it is done. Read Hebrews, the 4th chapter, the 10th verse. "For he that is entered into his rest, he also hath ceased from his own works." Ceased from his own works, that is the Sabbath. You have done the one true labor, the inner act of assuming, and now you rest from it. You stop striving, you stop digging, and this is precisely where I see people fail every day. They assume for 1 hour, and then they spend the next 23 tearing it back up, worrying, checking, forcing, rehearsing their backup plan. They plant the seed at dawn and dig it up at noon to see if the roots have taken, and then they weep that nothing grows. On Abdullah's step, I learned to plant it and walk away, to assume and then to enter the rest, as God rested on the seventh day and looked on what he had made and called it good, finished. And since I've said seed, hear the words of Jesus himself in the 4th chapter of Mark, because once they're in you, you will never force again. He says the kingdom is like a man who casts seed into the ground, and should sleep and rise night and day, and the seed should spring and grow up, he knoweth not how. For the earth bringeth forth fruit of herself, he knoweth not how. Read it again. The farmer does not know how the seed grows. He does not kneel over the furrow, commanding the roots to split. He does not lie awake, demanding the soil explain its method. He plants and he sleeps. He rises and lives his life, and the earth brings forth fruit of herself. That is the answer to the one question that has tormented you. But how? How could this ever reach me from where I stand with what I have? And my answer, straight from the lips of Jesus, is that you were never meant to know the how. The how is the affair of the soil. The how is the business of the law. When I lay in that room in New York, I did not know how the means to sail would come. I could not have engineered it. I only planted the assumption and slept, and the earth brought forth fruit of herself. The way opened, I sailed, I spent Christmas in the house where I was born. The moment you reach in to arrange the how, you have picked the seed back up out of the ground, and nothing on earth grows in a clenched fist. I want the weight to come off you now, because I think you've been carrying a thing that was never yours to hold. You've been trying to be the seed and the soil and the sun and the rain all at once. You've been demanding that reality rearrange itself along a path your reasoning mind can already trace. But your reasoning mind cannot see the how. It was never built for it. That is why the forcing leaves you so tired. You are straining to do the work of a power infinitely greater than your conscious effort, a power that does its finest work while you sleep. Hear the Psalm, the 46th, the 10th verse, 4 words that could remake the rest of your life if you let them in. Be still and know. Be still, not strive and know, not force and know. Be still. And do not mistake that stillness for weakness. It is the highest form of faith there is, because a man only grows still about a thing when, deep down, he is already certain of it. The mother who knows her child is sleeping safely upstairs does not pace the halls all night. She rests. Her stillness is her knowing. So when I tell you to stop forcing, I am not telling you to quit. I am telling you to graduate, to move from the frantic prayer of the beggar to the settled quiet of the man who already owns. And Jesus said it plainer still in the 6th chapter of Matthew, when he looked at the anxious crowd and said, "Take no thought, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink?" He pointed them to the lilies of the field, which toil not, neither do they spin, and told them that not even Solomon in all his glory was arrayed like one of these. He was not preaching idleness, he was preaching trust. The lily does not strain a single petal open. It simply is what it is, and the blooming happens through it. And so it is meant to happen through you. But Neville, they say to me, if I stop working for it, won't I miss it? Won't I be too slow, too late? And I give them Isaiah, the 65th chapter, the 24th verse, one of the tenderest lines in all of Scripture. And it shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer. And while they are yet speaking, I will hear. Before they call, I will answer. Do you feel the weight of that? The answer is not waiting off in some future for you to earn. The answer already is. It was prepared before you knew to ask. Your desire itself is the proof the thing is ready. For the very moment you conceived the wish, in the imaginal world, which is the only true cause, the wish was granted. You are not building it. You are receiving something already finished. That is the tragedy of the forcing. You are sweating to create what has already been created. You are pounding on a door that was never locked. Paul says God calleth those things which be not as though they were, not as they will be, but as though they already were. That is what you do when you assume the wish fulfilled. You call the unseen thing by its finished name. And you cannot do that while you force, because forcing calls the thing absent. Assumption calls it here. One of those two voices is shaping your world tonight. Choose the one that says here. So let me make it real for you. Something to do this very night. The easiest doorway into the wish fulfilled is that drowsy moment just before sleep. The state akin to sleep, I call it, where the striving mind finally lets go on its own. It is the most precious moment of your day. In that state, you do not affirm, you do not beg, you do not repeat a single word. You assume. Build one short scene, a scene that could only be true if the thing were already yours. The handshake, the phone ringing with the news, the word congratulations, the key turning in your own door, the arms of the one you love around you, and do not watch it from the outside like a film on a wall. Step into it. Feel it from within. Feel the relief of it being over, done, already yours. And then sleep. Enter the Sabbath. Cast the seed and rest. You knoweth not how, and you do not need to. Make it real to the senses, not vague. When I lay in that room believing myself in Barbados, I did not think the word Barbados. I heard the particular birds of the island. I felt the heat on my skin that a New York winter could not give me. I smelled my father's house. I made the imagined state more real, more solid than the four cold walls my eyes could see, because whichever world you make, the more real is the world your life must obey. That is the whole labor, not effort, not strain, just the quiet insistence that the end is already the fact, held until it feels natural, until it feels like memory rather than wish. And the moment it feels like something remembered rather than something wanted, you have received it. You may rise and forget it. It is done. Do not confuse this stillness with doing nothing at all. When the impulse comes to act, to answer the letter, to make the call, to walk through the door that opens, you move freely, gladly, the way a man already in possession moves. What you do not do is scheme toward it, chase it, force the how into being before its time. You act from the end, never toward it. And when morning comes and the fear returns, and it will, whispering, it's not here yet, do something, force it, you will know that voice for what it is. It is the beggar. It is unbelief dressed up as urgency, the very voice that had me standing on Abdullah's step. And you will do what I finally learned to do. You will remember the closed door, and you will refuse, quietly. You will return to the certainty, be still, and know, I have never seen this law fail, not once, in all my years when a man could truly assume and truly rest. You were never meant to force your good into being. You were meant to receive it. The thing you want is not far off, not years away, not reserved for people luckier or more disciplined than you. It is nearer than the ticket that sat waiting in my brother's hand while I slept in a room in New York, believing I was already home. So let the door close on your begging. Let it close hard, the way Abdullah closed it on me, because that shut door was the kindest thing anyone ever did for me. It left me with nowhere to go but into the state, into the end, into the having. Stop forcing. The forcing was never the price of admission. It was the one thing holding the door shut. Assume it is already yours. Enter your rest. Be still and know, and just receive.